Boker Tov Kal Kadosh. We are going to be continuing today on Daf Mem Dalid. However, though, we're going to start on Mem Gimel Amud Bet, just on the bottom, where it says Amar Rabbi Avhu, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rabbi Avhu in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Kol ha'isurin shebat Torah en heter mitzaref li'isur. In all the isurin in the Torah, there is no heter which is mitzaref li'isur chutz mi'surei nazir, except for by the isurei of nazir. That the heter is mitzaref li'isur, which means if you're going to eat half a kazait of grapes with half a kazait of bread in one shot, the bread is mitzaref to the isur, and therefore he's going to eat a full kazait, and therefore he's going to get lashes. Shari amra Torah, but the Torah says, "V'chol mishrat anavim lo yishteh," which means that the nazir, right? It says over here he's going to be chayav on eating bread which is soaked in wine. Or Zeiri Amar, and Zeiri says. He comes and he says, Af seor, right, bal taktiru. Also by the isur of aktarat seor on the mizbeach, also there's a din of heter mitzaref to the isur, which means if you're going to bring on top of the mizbeach half a kazait of komets, right, of seor, to do with half a kazait of komets of matzah, also, even though they don't mix up together and each one you see on their own, you're going to be chayav lashes. Okay? Keman, who does this go like? Rabbi Eliezer, like Rabbi Eliezer, the Darish kol. Because you remember that we learned yesterday that Rabbi Eliezer is the one that's toresh all the kols. Whenever it says kol this, kol that, he's going to add it in. Okay, and this is where we're going to start today's daf, right, which is Mendalid. Ihachi, if so, says Mendalid Amud Aleph, linyan chametz v'pesach nami. So to do with the eating chametz on Pesach, also we should say that there's a heter mitzaref li'isur, which means also to do with chametz, we should actually learn the concept of kol, which means that according to Rabbi Eliezer, when we say the word kol is marbeh al eruvo of the chametz, which means the chametz of heter is going to be mitzaref to isur. Okay, and therefore, so why does the Ire say that in chametz and Pesach heter is mitzaref li'isur? Right? What's going on here? Yeah, why didn't he mention it? Remember, one more time, what happened? Zire came and he said, yeah, he comes and he says like this. Uzeiri amar af seor bal taktiru. There's a biavhu in the name of Yochanan. Kol isurin shebat Torah, all the isurin of the Torah, heter is not mitzaref li'isur except for nazir. Zeire comes and he includes seor. If you're going to bring a seor on a mizbeach, the same thing. It's going to be the same problem. Comes the Gemara. Who does he go like? Like Rabbi Eliezer. So according to him, ask the Gemara, chametz and Pesach should be the exact same thing. If you're going to eat heter chametz, chametz heter with isur chametz, right? So now you're going to have a problem. You should get the lashes because of the word kol, and the kol is going to add it in. So says the Gemara, you're right. Inachenami, you're right. You're 100% correct. Ulapuke mida Abaye. This comes to exclude the shita of Abaye. Te'amar, because says Abaye, yesh haktara lepachot shel kezait. According to the shita of Abaye, he says that you get lashes on bringing onto the mizbeach haseor, even if it's less than a kezait. But according to Abaye, there's no such concept of heter mitzaref li'isur, right? To do with the concept of the isur of bal taktiru. So according to him, you don't need the extra to be mitzaref. You don't need to combine it to get a full kezait. Because according to him, since you get lashes even from less than a kezait, so therefore he says, Kamashmalan, te'aktara lav lefachot mikazait, that there's no achiyuv malkut, right, on haktara, on bringing to the mizbeach something which is less than a kezait, and only when you're going to be mashlim to a kezait, which means you're going to bring half of this and half of that, that's when you're going to get the lashes. Okay, so that's what it was trying to teach us, which means like this, according to Shitat Abaye, even if you bring a half a kezait to the mizbeach and it's not matzah, you're going to get lashes. Yeah? You're not allowed to bring seor nor devash. So if you're going to bring a half a kezait of seor, right, according to Abaye, you get lashes. Why? You brought seor. It's not a kezait. I don't need a kezait. So it's not that I have to do siruf. I don't need siruf. Siruf means I have to combine it together with something else. I don't need to. Even on a half a kezait, you would get lashes according to Abaye. So comes the Gemara and says it's lapuke Abaye. Lapuke Abaye kavana. No. We don't hold of Abaye. You need a kezait. How do you get a kezait? Half a kezait of seor, half a kezait of matzah. You put them together, they combine. Now you get lashes when you bring it to the mizbeach because you did combination. You combine them together. Capish? Okay? So says the Gemara, Yativ Rav Dimi v'kamala lahashmata. Rav Dimi was sitting in the Bet Midrash and he said this alachav Rabbi Yochanan that heter is not going to be mitzaref to Yisur only by Yisurei Nazir. Ve'amar le Abaye le Rav Dimi, he says Abaye to the Dimi. Ve'chi kol ha'Yisurim shebaTorah and heter mitzaref to Yisur. What? There's no other Yisurim in the Torah that heter is mitzaref to Yisur. Atram, we learned in the Mishnah, right? This is to do with Tvul Yom. Hamikpah, when you have a thick food, yeah, for example, like daisa, shel truma, of truma, ve'ashum ve'ashemen, or you have shum and shemen, so garlic or oil, yeah, which they put as a tavlin, as a spices of chulin. Ve'nagat tvul yom miksatan, and the tvul yom touched with part of the mikpah, pasal kulan, he's going to be posel everything, the entire mikpah. Why? Because since the mikpah, the ikar of the mikpah is a tafshil, so therefore the oil and the garlic which is mixed into it is tafel. And therefore what happens is it's not going to make like a sek between parts of the mikpah, but rather all the mikpah is one entity. And therefore the second the Tvul Yom comes and he touches with any part of the mikpah, he touched the entire thing and it's posel the entire thing. Right? But remember, Trumat Me'ah is a surah b'achila even for a Kohen. And remember, this is a Tvul Yom. A Tvul Yom makes a Shlishi in Truma. Chazak Baruch. You see? We thought that he was a sack of potatoes. Yeah, now he became a holy sack of potatoes. Yeah, now he remembers his huh? Yeah, no, he's on fire. He's on fire. Yeah. Yeah, very good. Yeah, so therefore it makes Tvul Yom makes a Shlishi in Truma. So here we're talking about it makes a Shlishi, therefore it's going to be a suit even for the Kohanim to eat it. So he says, however, though, what about the opposite? What happens if the mikpah was made out of chulin? Meaning the food was a chulin food. But the shum v'shemen, but the garlic and the oil was of truma. V'nagat tvul yom b'miksatan, and a tvul yom touches part of the mikpah, lo pasal el makom magao bilvad. He's only going to disqualify that place where it touched. Yeah. So basically the mikpah itself is of chulin. There's no psul by chulin, right? Because remember, Tvul Yom does not make anything into chulin. Chulin, after what level does it stop? The buck stops after the second one. Yeah? So he says, right, Vashum Vashem of Tuma, which is mixed, are not considered that it's mechubar. And therefore what happens is, it's like a hefsek. It's like a pasek. Yeah? Where's our pasek? He just dropped out. Yeah, Baba Haki, he was there just a minute ago. I don't know what happened. Yeah? And therefore he says that it doesn't disqualify only the place where it touches. Okay? So the Gemara asks, Vavinan ba, so we're going to now ask the following question. In the second case, where the mikpah was of chulin, makom megao amai pesula. Why is it going to be disqualified where you touch it? Habat lelu tevlim berov. It should be batel berov. Which means, I don't understand. In the first case, what happened? In the first case, you had truma, the mikpah was truma, and you had shemen and shum, oil and garlic of chulin, mixed in. Did we say there was a hefsek? We said the entire thing, they were batel, and therefore the second that he touches the truma, kaddish, nothing what to talk about. Yeah, it's trumat me'ah, and that's it. So now 1 second, why over there do we say that that's it? There's nothing what to talk about. And in the other case, right, why? Because we said it was batel berov, which means that all this chulin was batel berov, there's nothing there. The ikar is the mikpah, that's it. What about the other case? The mikpah is chulin. The shemen and the shum, the oil and the garlic is tiruma. It should also be batel. Why do we say that if the Tvul Yom touches it, he only impurifies that place where he touched? The entire thing should be pure. Why? It's batel. That's the Gemara is asking. Vavinam ba mekom magao amai psula habat lileu tevelim berov. It's going to be batel berov. So the Gemara says, Ve'amar Rabba bar Elchana. Says Rabba bar Elchana, to answer up this question of Yochanan, Matam, what be'emet is the reasoning? Hoil v'zar lokeh alehen bekezait. He says, you know why? If a person's a zar, he's a stranger, which means that he's not a kohen, yeah, and he's going to eat this tarovet, right? He's going to get lashes on the tarovet with a kazait, which means that truma is not like other isurim which are batel berov. Truma is not batel berov, right, pashut, but rather you need 100 times. Yeah, remember, by truma, it's not batel b'shishim or batel berov. It's 100 times, right? So therefore, he says the shum and the shemen of the truma are not batel berov. They're still asur to the zarim. So therefore, it comes out that since mina Torah, it's not batel. So therefore, it comes out that the entire thing has the name of a truma. And therefore, if you're going to eat from the mikvah, you're going to get lashes. Yeah, so he says over here, that's why when he's going to come and he's going to touch it, what's going to happen is that since it still has a shem truma, that's why it's going to be a sur. So that's how he answered the question. Everyone understood what happened? One more time. He asked, yeah, are you going to come and you're going to tell me that by other isurim, right, we don't say the concept of heter mitzaref l'isur? We do say it. And then what does he come? And he brings a case. What's the case? Mikpah. Now, the case of the mikpah, we have to flip it. There are two different cases. One case where the mikpah is truma and the oil and garlic is chulin, and another case where the mikpah is chulin and the shemen and shum is going to be out of truma. So now, in the first case where the truma, where the mikpah was truma and the olive and garlic, right, the oil and garlic, right, was chulin, there we said the entire thing is tameh. Yeah, we don't say it's hefsek. Why? It's batel berov. And therefore, since it's batel berov, you've had it. You ate truma, it's a big problem. In the second case, where you had the other one, which is basically that the mikpah was chulin, and the shemen and the shum is truma, and the tulium touched it, he only disqualifies where he touched. So he asks why? Why only where he touched? It's batel berov. So if it's batel berov, it shouldn't be disqualified at all. So answers the Gemara, no. You know why? He says because since right now, if a zar would eat it, he gets lashes because it's not batel. So therefore, he comes and he says, right, that's the reason why wherever he touches is going to be a problem. So the Gemara says, hey chidami, what's the case now where he would get lashes if he ate a kezait from the mikpah? La mishum de heter mitzaref l'isur? Is it not because we're going to say that heter is mitzaref to isur, and therefore even the chulin has now a name of truma because everything's mitzaref, and that's why be'emet it's going to be a problem? So therefore, it comes out that a tful yom is going to touch it, right? So he comes and he says, since we say heter is mitzaref l'isur, it's going to be a problem. So it comes out that this is a stira. We said that heter mitzaref l'isur is only by a nazir and not by other isurim. Here you say by even truma, you say that heter mitzaref l'isur. Capish? One more time. Yeah? What? No? One more time. Yeah? I don't want any nichushim here. Yeah? Yeah, I don't want any nichushim here. Remember, when he says, can you write yeah, he comes and he says like this, yeah? I don't like, you have to say, right, we don't like nichushim here. When he says Yosef HaTzadik, he went and he said nichush, it was a joke, because he knew exactly what was going. But he said keilu, ya'anu nichush. There's no nichushim. You know, he knows exactly what's going on. Right? One more time. Rabbi Yochanan, how we start off today's daf? It wasn't today's, it was yesterday's daf, the last time. What did we start off? We said, Kol Yisurin Shabbat Torah, by Kol Yisurin Shabbat Torah, and Heter Mitztaref Lisur. Heter and Nisur do not mitztarfim together, except for Nazir, which means not only it's either Heter or Yisur. If I'm going to eat half a kazait of Heter and half a kazait of Yisur, what happens? Nothing, because I didn't eat a kazait of Yisur. For me to give you lashes, I like giving lashes, yeah? That's why you come to me on Erev Kippur, yeah? And I give you the lashes, yeah? When you want the lashes, what happens? Yeah? You have to eat a kazait. If you don't eat a kazait, wallo, nothing happens, right? It's an isur, chetzi shur asur midorai, but there's no lashes, okay? Okay. What do we say? The only isur where you have heter mitzaref isur is what? Nazir. If you eat half a kazait of bread with half a kazait of the grapes or the soaked in wine or all of the everything to do with the grapes, what happens? Makot, lashes. For the Nazir. Yeah, the Nazir is not allowed to have anything to do with it. Huh? Okay, fine. Okay, very good. Next, yeah, Zihide comes and he's going to give you another chidush. He says, what about seor on the mizbeach? Yeah, seor on the mizbeach, which means you're not allowed to bring anything which is leavened, right, which is like chametz onto the mizbeach. The mizbeach is kasher Pesach. Yeah, yeah. Kichol seor v'chol devash. Remember, the majority of all korbanot. No, dvash no, but there's another reason for dvash, because they wanted to be that they didn't want to they don't want anything which is excessive. They don't want things which are very. We want things which are the bare minimum, basics. Okay, so now what happens is that, by the way, you should know the majority of all korbanot or all matzah, lechem apanim was matzah. It wasn't bread, even though we call it lechem apanim. It's bread. It's matzah. It's not bread. Yeah, which ones had chametz? the shtei alechem on Shavuot and the 10 loaves of bread of the Korban Todah, 10 out of 40. The majority of all the rest, all matzah, not chametz. Okay, so just to understand what we're talking about. Okay, so now Zeide comes and he says, no, what are we talking about? Also the case of seor onto the mizbeach, it also is mitzaref. Yeah, you have eter with isur. So if I brought half a kazait of seor and half a kazait of matzah, it's a problem. I'm going to get lashes. Why? Because I went and I brought it onto the mizbeach. Right? That's what we said on yesterday's daf, right at the bottom. Says the Gemara why? He holds like Rabbi Eliezer when it says kol. When you have the word kol, kol comes to include something. Right? It's not all. What is all? All is coming to include something. So the Gemara comes and the Gemara says, was it says ki chol seor v'chol devash. So the word kol comes to include it. So the Gemara says if it's like that, so what about chametz and Pesach? It's also written kol. So if I'm going to have half a kazait of matzah with half a kazait of chametz on Pesach, I should also get the lashes. And why does it says kol? So the Gemara answers, Inachanam, you're right. That should also be the exact same halacha. And the reason why, right, it's not like that, it wasn't stam to come out and say that it's not like Yotzim min haklan, but rather when it said the seor is over on the Bal Taktiru, right, which means that if you're going to bring the seor to the Mizbeach, you're going to be over on Bal Taktiru, you're not allowed to bring Kichos lo Taktiru mimenu Yishal Hashem, right? What does he come and say? It's coming to exclude Shitat Abaye. Because according to Shitat Abaye, Abaye says that even without a kezait, you're going to get lashes. Meaning you don't need a full kezait of seor to bring onto the mizbeach to get lashes. You get it even without there. So to lapuke Abaye, to exclude Abaye and say no, you need a kezait. That's why you have to combine it. But really, be'emet, according to Abaye, you don't have to combine anything. You brought a half a kezait of seor onto the mizbeach, lashes. That's the shita of Abaye. Now, when Rav Dimi was sitting and he was saying this braita, Abaye comes and he tells Rav Dimi, are you going to tell me that the only isur and eter which are mitzarfim together is only by nazir? Right? Let's look at this about truma. What's happening? You have a tvul yom. A tvul yom comes and he's going to touch a food. Now you have a mikpah. Mikpah, what? Mikpah is a food. By the way, where else do we see mikpah? By sukkah. When are you allowed to go inside of your house? When it's raining, that the rain would ruin your mikpah, your food, your dish. What dish are we talking about? Here it says it's like a thick dish, which is made out of sometimes like a daisa. It's like a porridge. Yeah. So if it's raining enough that it would ruin my food, I go inside my house. So mikpah is food. Yeah, mikpah is food. So now I've got the mikpah, which is made out of daisa, right? It's out of truma. Yeah, it's truma. I added in the condiments. What are the condiments? Garlic and oil. They're chulin. Says the Mishnah over there, this is the Mishnah in Tvul Yom, if right now the Tvul Yom comes and he touches it, he's posel the entire thing. Why? Tvul Yom makes a shlishim truma. Since he makes a shlishim truma, what happens? It becomes truma temeah. Once it's truma temeah, even a kohen is not allowed to eat it. Yes, because the majority of it is truma. And the rest is batel berov. The rest is batel. So now what do you do with truma temeah? Usually you burn it, but technically speaking, the kohen is allowed to use it for fire, fuel. Very good. Yeah, he's on fire. Mamash. You see the kohanim, mamash. They're on fire. Boom. They're just. Yeah. Exactly. We roast the potatoes in the fire in the barbecue. Yeah. Okay. Next.
Every day the kohanim are on fire.
What did you say?
I said every day the kohanim are on fire.
Every day. You see.
That's why they're nervous.
Yeah. Very good. He said that at least he has one supporter, Binyamin. Very good. Okay, so he says.
So basically, you're talking about teruma for asur to be touched by kohen was not tameh.
Exactly, tvul yom. If it's a kohen, there's nothing more to talk about that for sure. But here we're talking even a tvul yom, because the tvul yom makes a shlishi. If it was a regular kohen and he wasn't a tvul yom, he make it into a rishon or sheni. Here we're talking about that he made it into a shlishi. Okay, so now the opposite case. The mikpah was chulin, and the truma was the shemen, the oil, and the garlic. So now what happens? The tvul yom, wherever he touches, that's what makes it tameh.
But if this is the bowl, and it's all mixed together. So
no, but you could touch, you could see it. That's what we said. You could notice it. That's what we're talking about. Here again, we're not talking about that it got mixed up, that I can't recognize it. I see it together, but it's mitzaref. I see this is bread, and this is the wine, or this is the grapes that I'm putting on the bread. We're not talking about that it got mixed up at kedekach, that it's a tarovet that I can't see it at all. Heter is mitzaref to the isur, but you could still see the oil and the garlic. It's on the top, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah, so wherever you touch it, that's where it's going to be potzer.
You could take a.
Yeah, you could cut it off and you throw it out, or you burn it, whatever you have to do. That's a Mishnah.
Oh.
It's Mishnah. So now we ask the question, Makom Magai, why is it that the place that you touch is going to be pasul? It's Batel Berov. If it's going to be Batel Berov, since we're going to say Batel Berov in the Chulin, so for what's going to happen? So he says the entire thing should be considered Chulin, and therefore it shouldn't disqualify it. The exact same thing like the other way around.
But the majority is the porridge.
Exactly, which is Chulin.
So it depends if it's Truma.
But that's exactly the Gemara's question. The Gemara is saying just like by Truma, if the majority is Truma, the oil and the thing is Batel Berov, even though it's Chulin, and therefore, so the same thing the other way around. Answers the Gemara. Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Rabba Bar Chana comes and he answers. Matam, what's the reasoning? He says, no, you know why? If the Zar will come, a Zar is a non-Kohen, and he would eat this porridge, yeah, the Truma and the Chulin, he gets lashes on a kazait on the ta'arovet in itself. He says, why? He says, because, which one? Why is it lechatchila tuma? No, but why? He says, why? He says, because the truma is not batel min Torah. He says, why? Because the truma only is batel, not the shishim or berov. You need 100. And therefore, the shum and the shemen of the truma are not batel betarovet. So if it's still a sun, min Torah. So because of that, since there's no din of bitul, so if you're going to come and I'm going to take a kazait. Now, in the kazait, I have part shum. In the kazait, I have part shemen. And I ate the kazait, I get lashes. Why? I didn't eat a kazait of truma. I ate a kazait of the chulin with truma, but both of them together. Yeah, but at the end of the day, I didn't eat a full kazait of truma. It was truma and chulin together. So the Gemara says, since I would get a kazait, since I would get lashes, because it's mitzaref, so therefore he comes and he says the reason why it's mitzaref is because at the end of the day it's not batel berov. So since it's not batel, that's why. So therefore he says when they come and they're going to touch the truma, right? He comes and he says, even though it says it's only a miut, since it still has a shem truma, that's why it's all the same halachot. Okay? So now the Gemara is going to ask, Hechidami, what is the case exactly that a zad is going to get lashes of eating a kazait? So he says, La mishum de heter mitzaref le'isul. Is it not because you have heter and isul mitzarfim? Which means the Gemara is going to say, 1 second. Obviously, the only way you are going to have lashes is if you have them combining. If they don't combine, you didn't need a kazait. Remember, to get lashes, you always need a kazait. Somebody could come and eat pig. Chas v'shalom. If they do not eat a kazait of pig, there is no lashes. That's the way it is. Lashes, kazait. So the Gemara is saying, obviously, it has to be heter mitzaref le'isul. So the Gemara says, no. My kazait, what does it mean kazait? You ate a kazait betoch kedei achila pras, right? Which means that there was one kazait or more of the truma, and he ate the shiur of a pras from the mikpah. So within that pras, you have a kazait from the truma. That's when Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says you're going to get lashes, because eating a kazait from the truma, which is all over the place, it's considered that you're eating it in one shot. So therefore, and that's why he says it's not going to be batel, which means like this. Right? Remember one thing, right? In a lot of different types of foods or in a lot of different things, you always have to eat a kizait b'chtei achila pras. For example, right? It's on Shabbat. And I'm going to have Seudat Shabbat. You have to eat how much bread in order to make hamotzi? More. 28 grams. 28 grams. 28, 29, 27. There's all the shitot, but yeah, 27, 28 grams, right? You're on Netilat Yadayim. I said Birkat Hamazon. Birkat Hamazon, 1 kazait. Netilat Yadayim for the Suda. How much do you need to eat? Yeah, kabitza, 54, 56 grams. Very good. Right? It's double in a kazait. Which one? No, Amotzi and Birkat Hamazon. No, Netilat Yadayim in Birkat Hamazon. Okay? Birkat Hamazon, a kazait. Netilat Yadayim, kabitza. Very good. When I'm going to eat the kabitza, or I'm going to eat the motzi, I have the entire Suda to do it. Meaning, imagine right now I just did amotzi. Yeah, I come and I do amotzi lechem min haaretz. Yeah, and yeah, only one person does amotzi. Remember that, yeah? No, father, son. Yeah, one person does amotzi. Yeah, and he comes and he says, as follows. Yeah, he comes and he says amotzi lechem min haaretz. He cuts a big piece or a small piece for himself. For himself,
That's
small. For his wife,
Double.
big. Yeah, for his wife is big. Yeah, she eats more. Yeah, no. So what happens is like this. No, it's al pia Kabbalah. Al pia Kabbalah, he cuts himself a small piece, a kazai for his wife, a kabetza, double. Yeah, he eats a bigger piece for his wife. Yeah. So what happens is he cuts a small piece for himself and a big piece for his wife. He eats for himself a bite. Yeah, just that way he could talk. He was waiting to talk already. He was waiting for some. He couldn't control himself already. Yeah, so he wants to talk already. So he eats a little bit. Yeah, okay. 15 minutes later, okay, there's a good salad over there. Yeah, food art salad. So he comes up. Yeah, madbucha, eats a little bit more bread. Okay, but a little tiny piece. 15 minutes later, another little tiny piece. It comes, he wants to say Birkat Hamazon. What am I going to tell him? What am I going to tell him? No? Anybody there? What am I going to tell him? No Birkat Hamazon. Why? He has to eat a kazait. So you're going to say, what are you talking about, Rabbi? But I ate a kazait. Right? Throughout the entire meal, I ate 50 grams. I ate a kazait. I ate almost a kabetza. Let's say even I ate 100 grams. I ate a kabetza and almost kabetza and a half. You have to eat it in one shot. Now, one shot does not mean that you're going to swallow kazait. You understand? Nobody holds to that. You don't have to swallow the kazait. But you have to eat the kazait b'toch kedei achila pras. Toch kedei achila pras means that how long does it take for you to eat a half a loaf of bread? That's kedei achila pras. Pras is a half. How long does it take to eat a half of loaf of bread of this type of a grain? So the Gemara says you have to do a kedei achila pras. How much is the kedei achila pras? So if you remember when we learned ilchot matzah, you're on the night of Pesach and you have to eat matzah. So this most stringent opinion is 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes to eat a kazait. The regular opinion is 4 minutes, 5 minutes. There's 6 minutes, 7 minutes. There's 9 minutes. There's even 10 minutes. So therefore, for example, when we're talking about eating different shiurim, so for example, in Kippur, if a person chas v'shalom, right, they're sick and they have to eat shiurim, what do they do it? Every 10 minutes. Why? They don't combine. I ate right now. I'm going to eat another 10 minutes, 11 minutes later, 10 minutes later. It doesn't combine. It's not within the shiur of kedei achila pras. So says the Gemara, when do we say that over here that it's going to come and it's going to be, right? It's not because I'm mitzaref the isur in the eter. Be'emet, I'm not mitzaref the isur eter. But I ate the kezait of the truma, which means I ate the kezait of the oil and the garlic within the 4 minutes, let's say. Let's say lechatchila we do 4. Yalku Yosef, I think his lechatchila is around 6. Meaning he's more lenient that the kedei achila pras is 6 minutes. So according to that, you have it. That's why it's so important that when you do the amotzi at the beginning of the meal, immediately what do? You start eating the bread and you eat enough in order to do the birkat hamazon immediately. Why? Because if not, you ate a little bit of bread here, 5 minutes later another little piece of bread over there, but then you can't even do birkat hamazon. Why can't you do birkat hamazon? Because you didn't eat a kezait, the kedei achila pras.
Remember what the son of what they said that when you get to the meat, Rashi holds that you have to make the bracha on the meat.
Yes.
Because you're no longer involved with the bread. You're only involved with the bread for the salad.
For the salads and not for the meat afterwards. Exactly. You have to make a new bracha. Yeah. Okay. So that's what many times what happens. By the way, you should know some people they do that. Some people they purposely, once they finish with the salads, they put the bread right in a certain place in order that it shouldn't get mixed up with the meat. Why? Because on Motzei Shabbat, they take the leftover bread and what do? They use it for cheese. Yeah, they want to make, French toast. They want to make cheese sandwiches, this, that, toast, this, that. So now, 1 second. If it was with the meat, you can't use this bread now for a cheese.
But just a side question. Once you get to the meat, should you eat a little bit more bread?
No. If you ate your kazait or kabetza, come on, no, that's it. That's it.
You don't have to come back to it.
No.
Okay.
Now, there's a chumrah that what happens... What? No. No. Right? What happens, for example, right? What happens right now, for example, though, if I'm going to take 4 hours for my seudah, there it could be that at the end of the meal or in the middle of the meal, I would eat bread again just so that way my birkat hamazon is not so far away. You understand? That may be, but if it's saying if you're going to have a regular meal and 2 hours later you're going to have the thing, by the time, no problem. Okay? Fine. So now says the Gemara. Lo. My kezai. What do you mean you're going to get a lashes kezai? You have a kezai b'terech lepras. Says the Gemara, are you going to be over in the Isur by eating a kezai b'toch kedei achila pras? He says, I thought that if you're going to eat it b'vatachat, you're going to be over in Isur doraita, not with kedei achila pras. Says the Gemara Malay, he says, yes, the shiur of kedei achila pras is doraita. So says the Gemara, if so, so why was there a machloket? Why do the rabbis argue on Rabbi Eliezer, right? That he says you're going to be chayav makot when you eat kutach habavli. At the end of the day, even though they're not going to add in the word kol, remember, according to Chachamim, it was Rabbi Eliezer that said the word kol, not Chachamim. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, he says the word kol. Kol comes to include the chametz midin eter mitzaref liisur. Nevertheless, the pras, you still have it, which means the kutach has a kazait of chametz. So if this kutach has a kazait of chametz, and you're going to come and you're going to eat the kazait of chametz b'toch kedei achila pras, why did the rabbi say you don't get lashes? According to the Rabbi Eliezer, you get the lashes because you're mitzaref to isur, which it says the word kol. But according to the rabbis, no. Why not? You have kazait b'toch kedei achila pras. So says Gemara, elamai, but what does it mean? Yishum de'eter mitzaref liisur. It is mitzaref liisur. So why did the rabbis argue in Rabbi Eliezer? But rather you have to say that the kutach habavli lepe b'chtei achila pras. You don't have the kazai b'chtei achila pras. Meaning, if you're going to come and you're going to eat the kutach habavli, you don't have a kazai b'toch kedei achila pras. You're going to come, it's like, remember, the kutach habavli was like a type of a dish, which was a milky dish. It was like, one of these types of like creams or whatever, like, 5% type of thing, something like that, but it had some bread in it. Now, the thing is, it didn't have tons of bread. It wasn't like, it has breadcrumbs or I don't know what, in a salad that you could, no. So therefore, it didn't have enough that it was there. So the Gemara is going to ask, 1 second. If it has a be'en, the kasari fe'ka'achile, if you're eating the kutach be'en, which means you're coming and you're eating it the way that it is, without any type of tosafot, right? So 1 second, dachila pras, you are eating kazait chametz, but then 1 second, which means if you're going to eat something in not the normal way, we don't say it's you're not normal. You understand? You don't eat it that way. Imagine a person comes and he says, yeah, I like this. What is it? It's a dip, but I'm eating the dip by itself. You're going to say that's not normal. Imagine you have a vegetable platter, right? You put, it's incredible. It looks very, very good. You've got all the vegetables. And then in the middle, you have the dip. And you have a guy come and he's eating only the dip. You're going to say, like, what's going on here? You understand? That's not normal. It's a kol adam. You don't get any lashes for that. It's not the normal way of doing things. He says, and if right now you're being tovel, you're dipping it into another food and you're eating it little by little. So since you're eating it little by little, you don't have a kazai b'chtei achila pras. You understand? You don't have a kazai b'chtei achila pras. Remember, in order you need a kedei achila pras, so you have to eat it within the 4 or 6 minutes, whatever it is. You have to eat it. And by the way, you should know that's not only for Birkat Hamazon, that's for any bracha charuna. If I'm going to come and I'm going to take mezonot, that's the shiur of a kazai to make al michya. Yeah, but I came and I ate now. 4 minutes or 5 minutes later, or 3 minutes later, I took another bite. Another 3 minutes later, I took another bite. Another 5 minutes later, I took another bite. If I didn't eat toch kedei achila pras, which means within the 4 minutes or the 6 minutes, if I didn't eat one full kazait, it doesn't matter whether it was at the beginning, in the middle, or the end. It could be at the end. You understand? But it's just better to do it at the beginning to make sure that you were already chayav and you did it, because if not, you forget. So some people, they say, listen, Rabbi, do I really have to have the kazait or the motzi at the beginning? I want to have it at the end. At the end, I want to come, I want to take a piece, and I want to eat it. You're allowed to. There's no problem. And it's 100% okay. But just a lot of people, they forget it, because once they take their hands away from the bread, that's it, they forget about it. So it's better at the beginning. Mamash, at the beginning of the meal, kazait. You ate a kazait, now do whatever you want. But you eat your kazait. You already did your chovah. You understand? Or the kabetza, because of the tilat yadayim, obviously, right? Okay. So says the Gemara, 8 ways. So we're going to now ask a question. Shte kederot, when you have 2 pots, one of chulin, one of truma. Velifnen shte meduchot. And in front of them, you have 2 different types of mortars. Right? These are things that they crush the tavlinim. Achat shel chulin, achat shel truma. One of chulin, one of truma. Venaflu elu letechelu. Now the tavlinim, which was in one of them, fell into the pot. Now you don't know which one fell into what. Did the chulin fall into the chulin, or the truma fell into the chulin, and the chulin fell into the truma, or you don't know what happened. Yeah, says the Gemara, mutarin. It's all permitted. Why? There's a concept that says shani omer. She'ani omer, that I say. Shani omer, that I say the truma fell into the truma, and the chulin fell into the chulin. Via Marta, now if you're going to tell me because b'chtei achila pras is doraita, amay amrinan shani omer truma letoch truma nafla, which means like this. There's a concept that I say totally. You know what totally means? I'm going to be tole I'm going to depend that this is what happened. Now, the halacha of tolin, we only do in the Rabbanans, not in the Raitas. So here, what am I doing? I'm coming and I'm saying tolin. What's tolin? I'm going to say that which happened, yeah, he says over here, that which happened, right? That which happened over here, in this case, what's happening? I'm coming and I'm saying that the chulin fell into the chulin and the truma fell into the truma. Okay, how can I say that if it's a doraita? I could only say it if it's the Rabbanan. So says the Gemara, if I'm going to come and I'm going to say that there's no kidzayit bichtei achila pras, which means, or even if there is, it's only a din Rabbanan, so then it's fine. Why? Because worst case scenario, even if it didn't fall in like that, I'm not going to eat the kidzayit, meaning even if I would have eaten the kidzayit, it's only the Rabbanan. So therefore, there's no problem. So I'm going to say that the truma is the truma and the chulin fell into the chulin. But if I'm going to tell you that kidzayit bichtei achila pras is doraita, how am I going to say totally? There's a huge leniency here. Imagine, right? You. By the way, just to put it, we're talking about truma. The exact same question the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Kuf Yudalef in Isur Be'eter speaks about. Asav v'chalav. I've got a meaty pot here and a milky pot here. Is it permitted? Permitted. And they're both on the same stove. One on this stove, one on this stove. And in the same cooking range, I've got one meaty, one milky. Yeah, meat and milk on the fire. Both of them on the fire. Yeah. And in front of me, I've got meat and milk. So I've got meat, milk. Yeah, all of a sudden, I went and I didn't realize, but I put something in one and something in the other. I don't remember what I did. Did I put the milk in the milk and the meat in the meat, or the meat in the milk and the milk in the meat? I don't remember. So whenever it has to do with the din d'Rabbanan, I say tolin. What is tolin? I make depending that I probably put the meat with the meat. She'ani omer. That's she'ani omer. I say that you put the truma with the truma and the chulin with the chulin. So I'm going to say that this fell. So he says, if it's doraita, you can't say this. You don't say tolin and doraita. So says the Gemara, Amalei comes and he answers him, Hanach letrumat tavlin de Rabbanan. He says, no. Really, be'emet bichdei achila pras is doraita. So if it was doraita, you shouldn't have said it. So why do I say tolin then? Very simple. Because it's truma de Rabbanan. Not the kezai bichdei achila pras is doraita. The truma is de Rabbanan. Why is it truma de Rabbanan? Because it's condiments. It's tavlin. Tavlinin or de Rabbanan by truma. That's why. So says the Gemara, eighth way, we have another question. Shte kupot. Imagine I have two different types of baskets. Achat shel chulin v'achat shel truma. One of chulin, one of truma. Lifnehem shte seim, and in front of them I have two utensils of a seim. Yeah, each one has a seah. One of chulin, one of truma. And one falls into the other one. Mutarin, they're both going to be permitted. She'ani omer, because again, I'm going to say that chulin fell into chulin and truma fell into truma. Now, if you're going to tell me kidzai b'chtei achila pras is doraita, why do we say she'ani omer? Again, it's doraita. Safek doraita, you should be machmid. And so the Gemara Malay answers him, Hanach le truma bizman hazeh d'Rabbanan. Truma nowadays is d'Rabbanan. Meaning truma once upon a time when the Bet HaMikdash was kayam, it was doraita. But nowadays that there's no Bet HaMikdash, the entire concept of truma is only d'Rabbanan. Since the entire concept of truma is only d'Rabbanan, I say totally. I say shani omer. I'm going to say that the chulin fell into the chulin, truma fell into the truma. You could eat the chulin, truma I give to the kohen, and that's it. Right? Why? Because truma nowadays is d'Rabbanan.
When you say shani omer, it's the same concept as batel b'trei, batel b'shishim. It's a little bit along the same.
Well, yeah. Even though it's a little bit different, because the concept of batel b'rov or batel b'shim, there's actually a batel here. It becomes annulled. Here, I'm not annulling it. I'm just saying I'm making something dependent. I'm like assuming. It's an assumption, right? I remember once I had an English teacher. They always say, right, it never assume, because the assume is like the first three letters, this and that. You become like an
of you and me.
Exactly. That's what it is. Assumption is okay, fine. Of you and me. Assumption. Okay. Don't assume. Very good. Thank you very much. That's the way it is. I remember he used to tell us that all the time, and now you made it clear. Yeah, he always used to tell us that. Never assume. Yeah, but that's what we're doing here. We're making an assumption. And tolin, shani omer, I'm saying. What are you assuming? You're assuming that maybe you made a mistake. No, if it's the Rabbanan, we do it. If it's the Doraita, we don't do it. So we keep on after. It's the Rabbanan. At the beginning, we kept on wanting to say that the Rabbanan is that kidzai b'chtei achila pras is the Rabbanan. We keep on answering, no, it's Doraita. So how do we say shani omer? Very simple. Either because the truma was the Rabbanan, or the tavlin was the Rabbanan, or whatever. It's always the Rabbanan. Okay. Which one?
Because the Bet HaMikdash.
Yeah. Because there's no Bet HaMikdash nowadays. Truma is the Rabbanan. So says the Gemara. Yeah, as follows. Says the Gemara. Yeah, v'hai mishrat lehachi udeata. Right now, what did we just say before? Are we going to tell you that heter mitzaref liisur? This mishrat is coming to teach you by the nazir. Remember, the nazir. What happens by the nazir? If he has something which is soaked in the bread is he's allowed to eat bread. He's not allowed to eat wine. But if that's the bread soaked in wine, it's going to be mitzaref. So he says the word mishrat comes to include heter mitzaref liisur. I thought we needed it for something else. It's written mishrat anavim lo yishteh. What is it mishrat? Right? Memdala demubet 44b. Liten ta'am ke'ikar. Yeah, this is the first time that we're seeing this, right? This concept, even though we've learned it, whether it was in Chulin and in other places as well. Remember a concept called tam ke'ikar. What does tam ke'ikar means? That the flavor is like the ikar of what you're eating. Meaning, even though you don't have the ikar, the tam is like the ikar. The flavor is like the main concept. Exactly. So he says, Sheim sharanavi mimayim, because if you soaked grapes in water, v'yeshvem tam yain. Now this water has taste of wine, and you're going to drink this water, you're going to be chayav. Why? Tam ki ikar doraita. That's what we're saying. Tam ki ikar. If you're going to taste it, the taste is like the ikar. It's as if that you eat you didn't eat the grapes. Yeah, but you're drinking it. You're tasting it. That taste is like you're eating the grapes. And this is what we're going to judge the entire Torah. Uma nazir, just like nazir, there's a few leniencies in nazir. How many leniencies do you have in nazir? Any surah is surulam. The nazir, the isur is only for a specific time. It's not forever. Number two, any surah is surah na'ah. It's not a surah na'ah. There's no isur na'ah for the nazir. It's only achila. The nazir is not allowed to eat wine. He's allowed to sell it. Okay, it's better not to sell it just in case he's going to come in, but he's allowed to benefit from it. It's only an isur of eating, not an isur of hana. Number two, it's not isur olam. Number three, yeshetel isuro. Even within the time, he could do a tarat nedarim. He goes to a mumcher, to a bedin, and he could get out of the nazirut. So there's a heter to his isur. And still, albeit, right, of these three things, still, notwithstanding these three things, still a sabotam kikar. What about kilayim akerem? You're never allowed to have benefit of kilayim. Remember, kilayim means mixtures. That you went and in your vineyard, you mixed the vineyard with other things. And isura, you're not allowed to have benefit from it. And etel isura, you can never actually permit it. Shouldn't it be tam kikar? Which means that if the Torah was so stringent to do with nizirut, which is so lenient, and still I'm going to say tam kikar, for sure in kilei akerem, which is much more strict, then I'm going to say tam kikar. So says the Gemara, vehu adin leorla. The same halacha would apply to orla. Why? The kavachomer, but with the two chumrot. Right? That means even though you don't have the three chumrot, you have two chumrot. Also, because to do it orla, right? It's also going to be a sur, because the sur orla is more stringent in the fact of, where does it say the two chumrot? That it's more stringent. But it doesn't tell you which are the two stringencies. It's a surbana and it's not considered isur olam. Yeah, but it's still a surbana, and there's no heter to get out of orla. So because of that, it only has two out of the three stringencies. Still, I would say a kal v'chomer. It would say tam kikar. So hamani. So answers the Gemara. Who's this braita that says mishrat? That it says that it's tam kikar. Rabbananhi. Rabbi Yochanan de Amar Rabbi Akiva, but really Rabbi Yochanan, he comes and he says that we learn from Mishrat heter is mitzaref to Yisur, like Rabbi Akiva, that he says that Mishrat is mitzaref to Yisur, which means like this: the rabbis needed the word Mishrat to teach you tam ki ikar. Tam ki ikar means that even though you're soaking the wine in the water, whatever it is, tam ki ikar is doraita, which means the tam is like the ikar. That is shitat chachamim. However, though Rabbi Yochanan, he holds like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, he wanted to learn that Mishrat was coming to teach you heter mitzaref to Yisur. So therefore, you don't need it for this learning the tam ki ikar. So it says the Gemara, which Rabbi Akiva now? Hey Rabbi Akiva. If you're going to tell me Rabbi Akiva from Mishnah, the Tzrambas we learned in the Mishnah and Nazid, Lamedal and Mubet. Rabbi Akiva says Nazir Shasharapito B'Yai V'Yishbol the Tzaref Kedei Kazak Chayav. If you have a Nazir that he's going to soak his bread in yain, and it has, in order to be mitzaref Kedei Kazait, you're going to be Chayav Malkut. So therefore, if you're going to tell me now that you have in the bread itself the tziruf with both of them together, and therefore that's why you're going to be chayav. So Rabbi Akiva holds heter is mitzaref li'isur. Bread and wine are mitzaref. So mimay de pat v'yayin, right? Dilma miyayin lechudeh. Whoever told you that it's a bread with wine, maybe by the wine by itself it's already enough to get it. If you're going to tell me it's the wine by itself, mayin lememra, what do you mean? We already learned it. that even though you're going to have a tarovet, right? That means the wine is not by itself. It's not be'en, but rather it's mixed up with other things. Also, you're going to be chayav on eating it. Ella Rabbi Akiva the Braita, but it has to be Rabbi Akiva from the Braita. The Braita says, the Tanya we learned in the Braita. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Nazir sheshara pito b'yayin v'achal kezai mipato miyayin. What happens if you went and you soaked the bread in wine, and you ate the kezait of both of them together? I mean, not on its own. There's not enough wine. You needed the bread. You're still going to be chayav. So it's mefurash in the Braita that heter is mitzaref li'isur according to Rabbi Akiva. It wasn't from the Mishnah, because maybe from the Mishnah, maybe it was only wine that you drank. Here it says mefurash, you ate the kazait of the bread and the wine together. Meaning together, both of them together, that's what made the kazait. Then you get the lashes. So this is mefurash, heter mitzaref li'isur. So now the Gemara is going to ask a very, very simple question. One more time. What does Rabbi Yochanan do with the word mishlat? Heter mitzaref li'isur. Who does he learn it from? Rabbi Akiva. Yeah, what do the rabbis learn mishrat from? What do they learn mishrat? Tam kikar. So according to Rabbi Akiva, how do you know tam kikar? If the word mishrat teaches you heter mitzaref li'isur, how do you know the concept of tam kikar? Tam kikar means I'm going to take the taste of the wine and I'm going to drink it. Does it mean did I drink wine? I didn't drink wine. I drank the taste. But tam kikar, I drank the taste is like the ikar. And therefore I have a problem. How do you know that according to Rabbi Akiva? So says the Gemara, yalif mi basar v'chalav. He learns it from meat and milk. Why? Lav ta'ama be'almahu. He says, isn't it only tam? When you have the milk that gets absorbed into the meat, you're not tasting the milk. You're tasting the milk, which was the taste. The taste of the milk got absorbed into the meat. And now that's it. But you're not tasting the milk. And it's still going to be asur. So too the same thing. That means just like by milk and meat, you're over on basar v'chalav, even though you don't have the milk there anymore, and you're only eating the milk which is inside the meat, which is absorbed. And tam ki'ikar, so too over here. So Rabbanan, the rabbis say no. You can't learn from basar v'chalav the chidushu, because it's a chidush. What does it mean a chidush? Right? What's the difference between basar v'chalav and other isurim? Other isurim, it was always asur. Basar v'chalav, each one on its own is heter. Which means like this. I'm going to ask you, can I eat this piece of meat? You're going to tell me for sure. Chalak bet Yosef, this, that, perfect. Can I drink this milk? Say, yeah, for sure. Chalav Yisrael, this, that. Can I eat them together? Oh, chas v'shalom. Basar v'chalav. That's a chidush. Each one on its own is 100% mutar. I put them together, all of a sudden I made a new isur. So I can't learn anything from it. I can't learn tam ki ikar from basar v'chalav, because basar v'chalav is a chidush, it's a novelty. So I can't learn something from a novelty, right? As opposed to pig, nevelot utrefot, a nevela, orla, kile akerem. On its own, it's always asur. It wasn't that by itself it's mutar and putting it together is asur. You understand? That's one of the trick questions that they always ask. What happens if you're going to come and that at the beginning it's mutar, right? You have two things. At the beginning you could eat each one on its own, and then you come and now you're not allowed to eat each one on its own. So it's basar v'chalav. What about you have two things? One of them you're not allowed to eat. One of them you are allowed to eat. And after you mix them together, the one that you're allowed to eat, you're not allowed to eat, and the one that you're not allowed to eat, you're allowed to eat. What is that? Salting of the meat. Salt, you're allowed to eat salt by itself. The meat, if you didn't salt it, you're not allowed to eat it by itself unless you eat it raw. What happens? You salt it. The salt absorbs the blood. Now you're not allowed to eat the salt. But now the meat, you're allowed to eat the meat. You understand? It's trick questions. You understand? Like you have to think about these things. You understand? So let's just try to finish. We're almost done. Umay chidush. What's the chidush? If you're going to tell me that each one on its own is going to be permitted, and putting them both together, you're going to make it a sur. Kilaim nami, also kilaim. Each one on its own, it's also permitted. Now, when you put the kilaim together, when you plant them together, now it's going to be prohibited. But rather, no, says the Gemara, what's the chidush? The chidush is if you came and you soaked it inside of it. You took meat and you soaked it in milk. As long as it wasn't 24 hours, that then you get kavush kavushal, that it's like pickling, and then it's a problem. If it was 20 hours, is there any isur? No, what do? You take the meat out of the milk, rinse it out, and you could eat it. No problem. Of course. You don't have to do anything. No, you salted the meat. You know, meat that you get from the kosher market, whatever it is, you come and you soaked it. And then you just rinse it out, no problem. So he says, but you cook it a little bit, all of a sudden now it becomes a sur. That's the chidush. So says the Gemara, Akiva nami, and Akiva according to Akiva, basar v'chalav adai chidush. For sure it's a chidush. So says the Gemara, you're right. He's going to learn tam kikar from giulei nochrim. What is giulei nochrim? When you have the plita, there's something which was absorbed inside the kelim of a goyim. which means that when you're going to come and you're going to get, you went and you have a kli from a goy. So it says in the Torah, you have to actually do hagalah. What do you do hagalah? You take away the yisur. So he says, when you're going to come and you're going to do this, it says the yisur is absorbed inside. There's no real yisur there. If I'm going to take a pot, I'm going to go to a hotel. I'm going to take the goy's pot. You're going to tell me, look for the treif here. Look for the non-kosher. Where's the non-kosher? It's nowhere there. It's balua. It's tam ki ikar. The taste is absorbed inside the pot. So therefore, you learn from there that just like tam ki ikar. So it says it's not tam. It's only tam. Vasud and it's also sud. So 2 years, there's no difference. Tam ki ikar. You don't learn it from basar v'chalav because it's a chidush. Where do you learn it from? Gilei nochrim, from hagalah. That you have to do from a kli of a goy. So it says the Gemara, Rabbanan, Gilei nochrim is also a chidush. Why? Teha kol noten tam livgam is mutar de gamnina minevela. Noten tam livgam. If I'm going to give a bad taste, it's permitted. After 24 hours, you used your mini pot for milk. What's the first question the rabbi asked you? Was it boiling hot? Was it within 24 hours? Why does he ask you 24 hours? Because if it was after 24 hours, it gives a bad taste. The second it gives a bad taste, no ten tam livgam, it's mutar b'diavad, not lechatchila, but b'diavad it's mutar. So he says here, this is no ten tam livgam. It's after 24 hours. What's it? We learn it from a nevela. But here to do with gilei nochrim, it's still a sur. You have to do a hagalah. Nobody will ever tell you, listen, you know what? You want to go to the hotel, just make sure that they didn't use it in 24 hours and now use all their pots. It doesn't exist. You still have to do a galah. Why? It's after 24 hours. That's why it's a chidush. Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Akiva, it's only going to be prohibited the first day, meaning that this hilkach en noten tam livgam, therefore it's not going to be in tam livgam, which means it's not the reasoning of noten tam livgam, but be'emet, there's no din by gilei nochrim the chidush because it's only because of that. For Rabbanan, and according to the rabbis, right, that they learn tam ki ikar from the word mishrat. So why didn't they learn it from gilei klemidian, from hagalat kelim? So he says, kedera bat yoma nami lo efshar de lo pagma purta. He says even by kedera bat yoma, there's still a little bit of a pagam. Meaning that the concept is that there's still a little bit of a pagam. After 24 hours, for sure it's pagam. It's not a good taste. But even within the 24 hours, it's also already a little bit of a bad taste. Okay, fine. So we put this on pause. And that means basically what's going on. The rabbis come and they learn from Mishrat, Tam Keikar. Rabbi Kiva learns it from, right, whether we thought the Havamina, Basar Chalav, afterwards we said Gilei Nochrim. Okay, that was, and then why did each one not say like each other? They kept on, back and forth. Okay, now we go to the next point. Amar leRavacha bered Ravavia leRavashi. Midrabanan Ishma leRabbi Kiva. From Rabbanan, we're going to learn from Rabbi Kiva. Milo Amri Rabbanan. Didn't the rabbi say Mishrat Yitem Keikar? That Mishrat you learn Tam Keikar. Mikana Tadan. From here you're going to learn from all these students Shabbat Torah. So the Rabbi Kiva Nami. So according to Rabbi Kiva also, Mishrat le'etem instead of Yisur Mikana Tadan Chol Yisur Shabbat Torah. So it comes out that basically what's happening is that the word Mishrat, according to Rabbi Kiva, you're learning Hetem instead of Yisur. It's not only to do with Yisur Nesirut, it's the entire Torah. Meaning, just like we apply from the word mishrat lechol Torah kula, so too we're applying the word mishrat to lechol Torah kula. That means if I'm going to ask you right now, tam ki ikar, doraita, yes. Where do you learn it from? According to the rabbis, mishrat. Does that apply to all isurim? Yes, but it applies to everything. Okay, next, mishrat according to Rabbi Kiva, what do you learn? Heter mitzaref liisur, that prohibited and permitted, they combine. You learn that for all isurim Shabbat Torah? Yes. We just learned at the beginning of today's daf, or was yesterday's daf, the last line. Rabbi Yochanan only says that only by Nazir you say Heter mitzaref liisur. Where do they learn from? Mishrat, but it doesn't learn from everything. Here you're learning from everything. So he answers, Amalei, he's going to come and he's going to answer you. Mishum daven Nazir v'chatat shnei ketuvim mavayim ke'echad. Says no, Nazir and chatat are two psukim that are coming to one concept, and therefore you don't learn it. Tomorrow we'll explain this concept that basically whenever you have two things coming together, you don't learn from it. And therefore, that's halacha as well. That's why they're saying that you can learn from it for other Yisurim Shabbat Torah. Have a wonderful day, everyone.